Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. It's Friday, third hour, August 25th. And only one thing happens the third hour on this show. What just happened? As we look back at the insanity of the week, I got three great comedians joining us, two returning champions and a new guy. First, Carole Montgomery is here, comedian, creator, and one of the stars of Showtime's stand-up showcase, Funny Woman of a Certain Age. She's touring all the time doing afternoon and brunch shows, as she was just telling us. Carole, nice to see you again, my friend.
Nice to see you. This is, I'm in Denver right now. So this is really early for me. It's 10 o'clock.
What? Well, thank you. Thank you for waking up early. And Kevin Dombrowski, who never sleeps, he's here, stand-up comic touring around the country. His comedy album, High on Molly, and no more podcasts, right? Is that, I remember that correctly? Just joking. You stopped
Correct.
It for a while.
I'm now the only comedian without a podcast.
They're not going to catch up. But you stopped it because of audience demand, right? They're like, Kevin, please stop. We've had enough.
Yeah, actually, everywhere I went, they said, we'd come see you do stand-up if you don't do a podcast.
Well, Kevin, and joining for the first time on this panel, but he was on in the past, my friend Jimmy Tingle, a great comedian. You've seen him on countless TV appearances from HBO to 60 Minutes. He graduated from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He ran for lieutenant governor of Massachusetts a couple of years ago. We had you on talking about that. And he's always touring as a one-man show now. Jimmy Tingle tonight. Jimmy, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Dean. Great to see everybody tonight. Thanks again for having me on.
Sure. Jimmy's a legendary comic. I mean, Carole knows him. Kevin had to Google him, which is just awful. But let's talk
no. You, to be fair, you said, do you know Jimmy? And I said, I do. I just had to Google to see where I knew him from. To be fair, every time you email me, I also Google you, Dean.
All right, fair enough. And I saw Kevin. I saw you posting because you're opening for Carlos Mencia, like you're buddies with him, and you tour all over. And I saw you were just on the road. And so we'll talk about all your stuff where you guys, people can see you and more. Let's talk about something really fun because we've had some rough what just happened in the past. But Donald Trump's mugshot, he's now inmate number P01135809. That's his actual number, which is going to make a Les Mis sequel great when they do, instead of 24601, he's going to be prisoner P01135809. That's my singing. So, Carole, let's start with you. What is just your visceral reaction to seeing a mugshot of this criminal?
Well, I think he looks like I've dubbed him. He's a new Batman villain, Orange Whip. He looks like a fucking. Come on, he looks like a villain. He looks really. I mean, don't even get me started. I mean,
it's okay. It's radio. You should get started. This is how it works.
It's so obvious what he's trying to do. He's looking in the camera, going, nobody better fucking flip on me because you see these eyes. These eyes are getting you. I mean, look, we've talked about him forever. He's the GOP. He's the front runner of the party. So the more indictments he gets, like he says, the more popular he gets. And here's the thing, though. This is what because I think the media, once again, is creaming themselves because, we can put him on there. Somebody mentioned, first of all, the convention's not till next summer. If he's out of the news, like in jail or something, then, you don't see him anymore.
Maybe they'll cover him. They'll cover him going to the Here's Donald Trump walking to the commissary. Here's Donald Trump walking in the yard. Here's Donald Trump getting shanked in the prison. They're in the shower. They're going to be covering. Yeah. What are you kidding? He is a cash cow. We know that. Corporate media is about ratings for revenue. It's not. I'm not saying anyone listening doesn't know. We all know that. I just want people to understand. Like bemoaning corporate media for caring about profits is like being upset with insurance companies for being concerned about profits. They're just a business, and their profit motive is so apparent. They covered Trump's motorcade. Jimmy, let me ask you, have you ever seen them cover Joe Biden's motorcade? They covered Trump's motorcade yesterday like he's the king, and King Philip or, procession, King Charles. So Dean, what's your take on the photo?
They don't even cover Joe Biden. Never mind the motorcade.
I know.
Yeah, true.
It's like who's president? It's like Trump. So what is your reaction, Jimmy, to seeing this play out now? Fourth indictment. He had
honestly, I think it's great. And I'll tell you, as sad as it is to see this, we got to this point in this country where the president is, facing all these charges. The fact that he's not getting away with it is excellent. The fact that he's being held accountable Who knows what's going to happen, whether or not he's going to end up in jail or not, but he's being held accountable. To me, that's awesome. And what makes it really special is the Republicans who have held him accountable. The guy in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, okay, the people who have stepped up and not bent to him. Now, I'm not talking about the rest of the GOP, but I'm talking about the people who mattered in this thing. I think it's pretty awesome. I don't think he should be making money off the mugshot. I think the state of Georgia should get some of the money. They took the picture, right? Well, what's the royalties on a mugshot?
That's a great point. It's sort of like the Son of Sam law. Like if you commit crimes, you can't profit off your crimes. It really is called Son of Sam law.
At least the photo. He doesn't own the photo.
That's a good point. The photographer owns it. The government, the county of Fulton County owns it. That's who owns it.
Isn't he selling mugs with his fucking picture on it?
No, but Jimmy's absolutely right. It's really interesting. As a lawyer, that really rings a bell. You're absolutely right. You're right. The copyright for the photo is not owned by him. He can argue he wants a fair use of it, but he doesn't have permission. They should sue him, Fulton County, to get all the proceeds of it. That's a great point, Jimmy.
And that jail is so notorious. They need the money.
They do. So, Kevin, as the head of the Comedians for MAGA, what is your reaction to all?
Jimmy, just don't Google that, and we'll be even. First off, the mugshot reminds me. I had when I was in college. And was under 21, as was my girlfriend. She went into a bar for a college night, and someone asked her to buy a beer, and she did, and he was an undercover cop. So she got arrested for underage drinking, and her mugshot is almost the exact same pose and face as Donald Trump's mugshot. So I saw it, and it just reminds me of college. So that's hilarious to me. I want to play beer pong with that guy.
He doesn't drink. That's the most amazing thing.
I know. Obviously you see a president's mugshot. It's jarring. It's crazy to see that put around, but nothing surprises me anymore. Like, of course you would see it. Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, was in anticipation for the mugshot, and then using it on T-shirts is the most comic move I've ever heard in my life.
He's selling merch at his rally. He is selling merch at his rally.
Selling merch.
He's fucking selling merch.
Get a merch table.
selling mugshot mugs and T-shirts is, Jesus Christ. Why doesn't he just start a Patreon and a podcast after this? It's hilarious. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
He's going to end up doing the improvs. You know that.
He'll tour. He'll play. He can do theaters. He can do theaters. Yeah, Carol.
It'll be him and Jeremy Piven at Stand Up New York tonight. It's hilarious to me that this all gets put out, and then in reference to the motorcade thing, of course his motorcade got coverage. She said an ex-president headed to be indicted. The only way that they would film Biden's motorcade is if the bike from Dewey Beach was getting indicted. That's like the only thing that's missing.
He's got right. It's got. By the way, so Carol, do you love the irony? It's been called out everywhere. But Trump posts the mugshot with the words "never surrender" over it. Well, he's literally that photo is because he surrendered to the authorities. And I'm like, I don't think you understand never. Or maybe it was a reference to the Corey Hart song. I mean, maybe we're old enough to know that "never surrender." So maybe Kevin's gonna have to Google Corey Hart. But
is that an EY or just a Y?
Stop it. No. Oh, and also, Carol, what's your reaction to the fact that he lied about his weight in the mug when being processed? He said he's 215 when he's just in April, he was 245 here in New York, and he hasn't lost weight. There's been no diet regime between now and then.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing keto. But what was I can't really fault him for that. You know why? Because on my driver's license, I'm 120 pounds.
Okay.
So, what I would have loved to have been was be a fly on the wall when he's being booked and somebody goes, "And your weight and height, sir," and how that if I was that person, I'd have been like, "Get the fuck out of here. You're getting on a scale." But, they didn't do that, which I thought was of all the things that let him get away with, they didn't weigh him. Come on.
But it's funny. Think about his staff. he says 215, and his staff's like, "Don't make eye contact with me." Like they're all looking down. Like, don't make me laugh. I'm gonna start laughing. Right? Like, don't. He's like he's so. Jimmy, on some level, the idea that the mugshot's now become a comedic meme, his weight is being mocked. I actually think this is important because that picture was intended to be frightening. It was defiant. He practiced it. We're learning now, literally, not joking. CNN reports that he had practiced it. He wanted to look angry for the photo. And for his base, that's fine. But laughing at a dictator, laughing at a wannabe fascist leader, I think is so important because, I used to perform comedy in the Middle East a lot. You can't tell jokes about the leaders there because no king or dictator wants to be mocked. So in the big picture, isn't it good that we're laughing at him? And we know Trump hates being laughed at.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. And it's kind of just indicative of the system that we have. We have a system where you can say whatever you want about the president, and that's pretty awesome. But the president is not above the law, and that's pretty awesome. And that's also a message to the rest of the world. There's a lot of places that you can't laugh at the dictator, but also, they're never held accountable either.
Right.
And you're not going to see Putin going to trial. You're not going to see the guy in China going to trial, or a lot of these other places. So I think it's good. And I also think that it's, I don't think it helped him not being at the debate because they're starting to crack. The Republicans are starting, not all of them, but the important ones are starting to crack. Pence, Christie is hammering them, right? Even though Christie was booed. I don't know if you guys watched the Republican debate, but I watched it, and Christie walked out there and boos, right? Because he's been hammering them. Pence, but they're starting to crack. Not all of them. And so they're going to be in disarray. When it comes to the election, they're going to be much more divided than the Democrats, even though, because there's one guy running basically. I mean, there's a little competition, but so I think I think this is going to backfire in a huge way. And so that's my hope anyway.
I hope so too.
With you. I do agree. I think that people, the thing about his base is my dad used to say, we used to have we used to discuss this one thing about, because when I was younger and with abortion and pro-choice, and it used to drive me crazy because it always seemed like, the people who were, anti-choice were always in the news. He goes, Carole, they're the loudest. And I think that's a really important thing. And I think what's happening is the people who voted for Trump, like the suburban wives and the independents, they're like, oh, we might have made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I really do think that, because I know at least a dozen people who voted for him the first time, and they're just like shocked.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't understand is, we saw January 6th happen.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it happen. And for him to go on Tucker and go, it was a beautiful day. Everyone was so happy. It was so peaceful. Everyone loved it. I mean, they're not showing that. We saw it. Your own fucking network was showing people hanging and banging in and killing police, the law and order guy. So I forgot why I went off on that tangent.
No, I think it's great. Kevin was there, right? Kevin, you were there January 6th. Kevin,
I was. Actually, my daughter's middle name is January 6th. It's
January 6th / 1776. That's her nickname. Her nickname is 1776.
Right. Yeah. And we just call her Little Never Surrender. Just when we see her around the house, we go, "Hey, what's up, little Never?" I think, you know what, I would love to be able to think like him. Terms of just to have that interesting perspective, where it's like everything around you is wrong and you're not. I would love that just for like one day, especially as a comic, just to like hear something that you do and be like, yeah, no, that was great. not like go back to editing something and you're like, wow, what a trash human and comic you are. And then on top of it, it's like of course his mugshot was released like a dating app profile. It was like 6'3", 215, never surrender, also kayaks on weekends.
It said strawberry hair. Like it actually had a description. I'm not kidding. Literally. And when I did some research, and I'm like, according to AP, the defendant, it's customary, they provide the information for it. So either Trump or his aide said his hair color is strawberry, his eyes dreamy, like we can't write dreamy. Blue, put blue. Like this.
Somebody should do the picture of his mugshot in the Barbie box. You know how everyone was doing the Barbie box.
Do you guys know Jenna Ellis is one of the lawyers? I don't know if you saw her mugshot. She was smiling so much. It was like a dating app. It was like Tinder, like you swipe far, far right. And you get to go out with her. Like it was really, she looked so happy. Like what a choice she made.
Because she has Jesus in her heart.
Yeah.
He's going to bail her out.
Well, we're continuing our conversation. What just happened? Carole Montgomery, Kevin Dombrowski, and Jimmy Tingle.
I just want to say something to Kev.
Go ahead.
I like the idea of trying to get in the mindset of blaming everybody else, and it's not your fault. It's very helpful as a comic. You get off stage. What's wrong with these fucking people? It's not my act. It's you people.
It's you people.
Yeah. And if the guy kills after you, you go, what a hack, huh?
And you imagine being a comedian and not blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong in your life, because as comedians, all we do is blame ourselves for everything. Like, well, I worked hard, and we're like self-conscious. But the one person doesn't laugh in the audience, you come off the stage going, "What was wrong with that part?" Like that's the stuff that we think of. So as opposed to this, imagine you've done no wrong. Nothing you've done is wrong. You're perfect.
I've done nothing wrong. 91 counts against me. I've done nothing wrong, and everybody knows it. Really?
Yeah.
Well, look,
also,
I do like.
Also, Michael Jackson and R. Kelly were innocent. I would just like to say that on record.
The one good thing is, look at Fulton County. In Fulton County, they did show us what it means when you say no one's above the law. Fannie Willis, the DA, gave a deadline of noon today, and every single defendant now showed up and reported in. Mark Meadows wanted an extension. She said no. He ran to court. She opposed it. No. Donald Trump had to get a mugshot. In New York, you're supposed to get a mugshot. Every other defendant in federal court, you get a mugshot, but they gave him special treatment. And I love the fact that he had to post bail for the first time. He should have had to post bail in other places too. The special treatment of Trump, like Jimmy, you're saying it's important the world sees we hold our leaders accountable. Up until now, he's been charged, but the special treatment's been off the charts. And I'm really so happy that in Fulton County, they're showing us really no one is above the law. We are going to treat you like anyone else. And that's an important message, I think.
It really is. And it's because it's a state trial. You can't pardon a state. You can't, if he's found guilty, the president can't pardon him because it's a state court. And the governor can't pardon him either because it's the RICO law. And so he's not pardonable in the state of Georgia. And they have different standards. But also what's really interesting is this Fulton County jail is supposed to be a notorious jail. It's supposed to be very dangerous and all this stuff. If Trump is convicted, this could lead to a national, the Republican Party leading the charge on prison reform. How can you put people in such inhumane circumstances? These poor lawbreakers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a real insight into the criminal justice system, and all of a sudden these 18 middle class, upper middle class people, white people being booked in this jail. Heaven forbid they would have to do time there. And so there's a whole window into the criminal justice system where, when these mainstream people are subject to the same punishment as everyday people in Georgia.
Carole, do you think if Trump is sentenced to Georgia that MAGA tries to break him out like the old Westerns? They come with a horse and a rope, they throw in the window, tie it to the window, Mr. President, tie it to the bars, and they go, giddy up. Like, they're going to try to break him out. I really think they would try to break him out.
No, I want to be there so badly to film that, because it's going to be, you won't be able to write that. Because you're absolutely right. First of all, what Jimmy was saying about prison reform, let's just go down that road, and they do change the, it becomes a better jail. Trump will be like, well, it's because of me. I did that.
I made prisons great again. I'm making prisons great again. Right, MPGA.
Exactly. They'll have gold bars, the toilet. Only McDonald's hamburgers. I don't know.
Only the best people are in here. I got the best people with
exactly.
Here's do think they'll try to break him out, which will be just
so much fun. They come with a cake with like a McDonald's cheeseburger with like a file in it for him and stuff. But Kevin, what gang do you think Trump joins in prison? Skinheads? Does he try to join the black Muslims? Like, look, I try to ban Muslims, but now Saudi loves me. I could be with you guys. You think it's the skinheads, Aryan Nation? Is it?
I think he actually throws a hardball, a curveball here. I think it's MS-13, and then afterwards, I think they're going to pay for the wall. I think that's how that's going to happen.
Wow!
Oh, we're bringing Oz back. We're going to bring Oz back on HBO with Trump. How much fun! Look, just the idea. Of this. Go ahead.
All of this just reminds me of like My Cousin Vinny. Like seeing the mugshots and like the indictments and everyone smiling and all this. Like I just picture a judge being like, "Didn't I tell you to dress appropriately when you're in my courtroom?" And his lawyer just being like, "You were serious about that?" Like that's all I picture with all of this.
And it's Southern law too. The difference is Georgia, like My Cousin Vinny, is Southern law. Like New York, we have bail reform laws. That's where you can walk out. Georgia, no, 5-year minimum mandatory because it's all law and order in the South. And now Trump gets caught in that spider web, and it's great. We're going to see.
Oh, you know what would be the best is if he, if just like the voter suppression with the IDs, if someone didn't bring his ID to jail and he couldn't get out because of that, that would be really an ironic situation.
And you just join us. It's What Just Happened with our friends Carole Montgomery, Kevin Dombrowski, and Jimmy Tingle. So let's talk. Although I can talk this in the fantasy scenario of
Can I just make one more?
No,
point?
Carole. Of course, you can say whatever you like. Of course.
Here's just to get serious for just a 10. Because I know Kevin has a young child. Jimmy, I don't know if you have children, but I have a grown son.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing.
The problem I have with all of this is that what are we teaching our children?
I don't know.
Because you can, regardless, you're teaching your child that if they do something wrong, all they have to do is bitch about it. Now that's a toddler anyway, so that doesn't matter. But I'm very proud of the fact that my son is a decent human being, because to the point where I'm more shady than he is, and it pisses me off.
Wow.
Because I'm like, break a fucking rule. You know what I mean? But what are we teaching? What are we teaching children across the board, whether they're children of color, white children, Jewish?
Yeah.
That's the thing that really bothers me about this. Because
here's what we're teaching them, Carole. We're teaching them that if you keep messing up and you don't respect the law, one day you could be president of the United States.
Thank you.
Right.
That's exactly.
But that's also why he has. That's why he has to be held accountable, Carole, to the serious point, because you want to deter Trump and any other politician in the future. I don't care what party. Right. You can't commit crimes, and you are no longer going to be above the law, because up until now, presidents, when they leave office, have been above the law. They've never had to answer for anything. Richard Nixon would have, but he was pardoned by Gerald Ford. So this is where we are. So it really is. It's a change in the right direction. So, Jimmy, you mentioned earlier about that Joe Biden gets no media coverage. Does Joe Biden have to commit a crime, like knock over a liquor store or something, to get some media coverage at this point? What do you think, Jimmy? What does he do? He's done a really good job as president. For 2 years that they had a House, and the Senate, they passed legislation. Now they can't pass anything, but he has a good record. Inflation Reduction Act, infrastructure bill, helping our veterans with the PACT Act, CHIPS bill, investing in semiconductor industry in our nation, which is good for national security, and the like. And he gets nothing.
Yeah.
It's zero coverage, this guy. It's unbelievable.
That's okay, because I think that the Trump show is just gonna keep going. It's a carnival. All Biden has to do is just keep doing what he's doing. Be an adult. Be normal. There's more people in the world and in the country that are even-keeled, that are moderate, that can see, like, you need to do things. You need to compromise. You need to work with other people where you can. And I continue to pass legislation, but to, talk about the record and also the issues that matter to people. Look at guns. Guns matter. Gun safety matters to people. The environment, the green, the green energy and the climate change. It matters to people, especially the millennials. A lot of young people. Choice, freedom of choice matters to people. All these things. And so those are like three major issues that I think he has the majority of the people on his side. I think where he could really step it up, and they hammer him on the border, and the border is a huge problem. immigration reform. I think he should be taking the lead on immigration reform, make it a priority of the Democratic Party, and put the Republicans on defensive. What do you mean you don't want immigration reform? You know what I'm saying? They're always screaming about the border. All right, immigration reform. And the other thing is substance abuse disorder. His example of his son, that there's millions of people in the country who have friends and relatives and parents and kids who are addicted or have sadly passed. That could be a huge issue, A, because it's right, but B, because nobody's really talking about the importance of treatment when it comes to this stuff, and in terms of fentanyl and everything else. So I just think he has to do what he does and get the right messaging out there with people that are more articulate than him. Because let's be honest, he's not the most articulate person. He's 80 years old. He stutters anyway. He was stuttered when he was 40. So I just think that the right messages and messengers
the real people that voted to get him in office.
Yeah.
Are the people? How much did he win by? 70?
Well, 81 million to 74. But I mean, electoral college, he pretty handily. But it came down to about 100,000 plus votes in a few key states that could move around.
I'm so sick of this. I don't turn the TV. The fact that you asked me to do this, I'm like, oh God, I have to talk about this asshole again. Because we all thought, regardless of what you think of Biden, we were like, oh, good. This shit show is over. And it's like, oh, it's still here. So, I think Biden will be reelected just like by 7 million votes again. The same people that didn't vote for Trump the second time are certainly not voting for him the third time.
I agree with that. And it's going to be interesting. Also, I think Jimmy hit on it in a way. I don't think 2024 election, if Trump ends up being the nominee, normal traditional thought would be like he's not going to, even though he's leading, like something will happen, but we'll see how it works out. The thing that's going to get people to the polls is not him being charged with crimes or even convicted. It's reproductive freedom, choice. I mean, women's health is the biggest. We saw in Ohio, the referendum a couple of weeks ago, blown out of the water. That is still moving people. So it's the issues that touch people personally. Gun violence for Gen Z activists. I have them on my show. They talk about that. And climate change is so personal because they're going to live here longer on this earth and it's exploding. And you literally had Vivek Ramaswamy on the GOP debate stage a couple nights ago saying climate change is a hoax. That's laughable. That's like, are you kidding me? Like the earth, America is burning up and we're having fires and got tidal waves and everything. So, all right, let's take a quick break and we're going to continue with what just happened. We got a lot to talk about, including Carlos Santana saying weird things at a concert in the middle of it for no reason and more. So let's take a break. Be right back with what just happened after this. Ready? We come right back. And welcome back. Dean Obeidallah Show. It is August 25th, and all three comedians have stayed for a change. Carole Montgomery, Kevin Dombrowski, and Jimmy Tingle. We lose people in the break. We don't really. I'm kidding. It's like a running joke. Once we had one comic who had to duck out, and then it became like a running joke. So one thing here I found interesting. In Russia, his name is, I can't say his first name, but Prigozhin ran the Wagner group. He attempted a coup, and they didn't wait 2.5 years to charge him with anything. His plane went down in 2 months and just happened. And, what I love is CNN's headline is, what could have caused a plane crash that reportedly killed Wagner warlord Prigozhin? I mean, why didn't you just put a picture of Putin right there? Are you kidding me? But imagine though, if you're going in a plane with Prigozhin, don't you go like, oh, he's on the plane, I'll take a bus. Like, I'm not going with that guy. Like I'll walk. I don't care if it's a 3-day walk. I'll go through villages and beg for food. Why would you get on a plane with him? But so, Kevin, what do you think of this guy, the Russian warlord? He attempted a coup, and 2 months later, his plane just happens to fall out of the sky. They have video, a wing was missing. Interesting.
What do I think of?
Who do you think did it? CNN had a question. What could have caused a plane crash?
Yeah, I think all we're missing is a video of Putin on the runway with the lights just guiding the plane to take off. I like imagining this guy opening up the window and being like, I'm missing one of the wings. Does that matter? And he's going in a mustache, like the old manager of the Mets when he got kicked out, he would come back with a mustache on. Putin just going, don't worry about it. It's a new model. You'll be fine.
It's fine. You only need the one wing. The wing, it took off with two wings, but they're saying now there was a bomb in the plane, not a missile. And I knew that instantly. The U.S. military said they don't have any evidence of a missile, which means we have satellites everywhere. We're watching it. And they're like, there was no missile.
Here's where they kind of literally shot themselves in the foot with the missile. There's no way to explain that otherwise. Right. You would rather it be a missile and be like, it could have been anyone, right? It could have been an act of war against Russia. The fact that there was a bomb in this guy's suitcase, it's like, well, who packed his parachute? Let's look at that detail.
So, Carole, what do you think? Is that a way to deter future coup attempts? What do you think? Is that pretty good?
Well, yeah. When I was flying to Denver, my husband was like, "If there's any Russians on the plane, get off."
He said that?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm not surprised. Are any of us surprised at this? I mean, come on.
It took 2 months. That's the only surprise.
Well, but getting back to Schmucko, he's like, how come I can't be like Putin? Why can't I kill people? And that the guy was like, yes, we made a deal. I'm good. We're going to. I was like, what are you doing? The only other thing I could think, keeping in the Batman, universe, is maybe he wasn't on the plane and it was somebody else.
Right. That's a possibility that people talk about that. Jimmy, I remember Dennis Leary had jokes years ago about, the Leonard Skinner died in a helicopter crash. He liked him. And he goes, we can't get Andy Gibb on a helicopter. Andy Gibb is no longer alive. But the idea of ending horrible music that he hated. Meanwhile, he must have liked Leonard Skinner. And so I think it's interesting, the idea of can we joke about putting Trump on a Russian airlines? Is it at what point is it appropriate, not appropriate? And do we care?
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I heard it this morning on talk radio. I listened to a lot of conservative talk, and the guy was saying that that's how they're going to get Trump. He was like not saying it as a joke, more as planting the seed of conspiracy theories, So it's not something I would really joke about, but because if the situation was reversed, if it was about Obama, you know what I mean? Sure. Where Obama on a plane and people were making jokes about it, people would be freaking out. So I think you got to. I don't know. I don't think people will be doing it, but people will do what they want to do.
Kevin's in the clubs a lot. I'm sure there'll be a lot of
Although,
how many audience members know Prigozhin and what happened with the Russian? That's the other part of it.
That's the thing. Like Putin's an obvious target. I don't think it would have to be an avid political follower for this to hit their veins. Like, this is a good topic for us because it's really funny. It's tragic that this guy died, but in the situation that it's in, where it's like, it's the most ironic thing where it's like, oh no, we're fine. Just, you know what it is? It's in Goodfellas when Robert De Niro tells Ray Liotta's wife to go pick out a dress at the end of the alley. Yeah. And she starts going close, and he goes, no, round the corner.
It's in there.
Jimmy, I gotta go. I got a lot of things going on, Jimmy. And then she leaves. It's the exact same situation.
That's a great impression. Karen, why'd you do that? That's all we had. Me and my fiance, we joke about it all the time. Why did you do that? That's all we had.
They were never gonna find it.
It's against my Ray Liotta impression. So let's talk. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. This is a CBS poll on Sunday. 71% of Trump voters hold him as the top source of true information. Let me repeat that. Of all the sources they asked them about, religious leaders, Republicans, family, friends, who do you rank as the top source of true information? And the number one person these Republicans said was Donald Trump. He got 71%, said he's the best source of true information. Their family came in second. Religious leaders came in fourth. So, Carole, how do you even talk to people? It says so much about the cult, doesn't it? Like, they only listen to the cult leader.
Well, but my question to you is, was it Trump voters or Republicans?
No, it was actually Trump voters, it was more narrow. I'm surprised
it was only 71% then. Do you know what I mean? I would think that they'd be like, no, 100%.
Whatever he says is the truth. That's insane. Imagine that, to believe some politician, a politician is your number one source of true information. over friends, family, even religious leaders. If you're religious, that's
yeah. But haven't you seen some of the? I mean, it is a cult. I mean, haven't you seen the his face on Rocky's body? I mean, and they say that's his real body, and they're.
According to that mugshot bio, it is.
But it does. What's funny is the picture that they have of that on the Rocky body. It looks just like the mugshot.
It with the face look. Jimmy, I mean, you're out there, you're talking to people. You always are trying to reach people. Is it impossible to reach Trump supporters about Donald Trump and his crimes, or can you reach him?
I think the other Republicans are going to reach him. Like the point I was making earlier, people they trust, not me, but people they trust. When Mike Pence starts saying stuff, when Chris Christie starts saying stuff, when the people who are on the same level, on the same team start saying stuff, I think that has more credibility than any of the Democrats or I think any of the comics. But it's one of the reasons I think they trust him. The disinformation is so insidious. He tells them he's on their side. You ever listen to him really closely talk to the people? He first of all, why do they trust him? He talks to them way more than religious leaders, way more than anybody else, way more than their whole family. Their people's families are not texting them and tweeting at them, 5 times a day. They're not making statements. And he says things like, they're not coming after me, people. They're coming after you. And there's nothing between me and them, you and them, except me. I'm in the middle and I'm protecting you. That's his message. So, people want to feel like they're protected, but the reality is, Dean, he could still win. He could still win because he has very powerful allies. He cut corporate taxes. The corporations love him. He cut environmental regulations. The oil and gas industry loves him. He actually cut regulations, Dean, for the Judeo-Christian tradition. The 10 Commandments are down to 6. He got rid of lying, stealing, cheating, and adultery. So 4 more years of this guy, there'll be no more commandments.
So Kevin, I mean, what happens? Say we defeat Trump, and I really believe we will. MAG is out there. They're just looking for a new leader. And that's kind of concerning. It's not like we end this kind of movement, this authoritarian movement on U.S. soil that we've never seen like this before. And it's worrisome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically about that. It doesn't surprise me when you have someone that people believe every word of course they're going to think that he's the most honest. You know what I mean? Like when you believe everything that comes out of someone's mouth, I'm going to go, okay, that's the source of information that I'm going to believe. So that makes sense to me. I think that the base is made up of people. I think what happens politically when the pendulum swings one way or another is there's always a group that feels disenfranchised from one side, and then it goes to the other, and then there's another group that feels disenfranchised. And so I think it's all in relation or reaction to current policies and who feels slighted and who felt slighted before, and they take power and all this nonsense. So that happens. So if he does go away, before it was like, oh, it's Ron DeSantis' time. And that's what like a lot of people were saying. And then we saw that Ron DeSantis might be AI. And
he's not even human. He's not even doing a good impression of a human.
It's like, yeah, it really is. It's like a computer's telling someone how to smile just in his head. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then he goes away. It just I think what's going to happen is someone a little bit more sensible is going to have to come in and have the talking points of having the backs of not the radicalized people, but like the majority that follow him because they like what he says. He represents them. It's exactly what Jimmy just said. Those people that listen to like, oh, the government's after me and this guy's got my best interest. If you have someone else that comes in that's it's actually good and an elected representative, I don't think that, there's like this like weird MAGA-ism that stays around for a long time. I think that I think they'll get behind whoever has their best interest. I think that's what this country does.
I think some of them leave politics. I think some of them are only engaged because of Trump. I think they disappear. But yeah, Jimmy,
fair enough.
Dean, can I just jump in for a second?
Of course.
To Kevin's point, the way he won originally, he went to places none of the Democrats ever went to, and none of the Republicans ever went to. And he went there and he said, I want to make America great. You've lost your jobs. The corporations have left. Washington doesn't care about you. They screwed you. I mean, he went to West Virginia, which is hurting, and he says, I want to bring back coal. Now, I don't think it's a good idea, but most people don't. But if you live in West Virginia and coal mines are closing, it's a good idea when there aren't any alternatives. So he talked to people, and that's something that was a big lesson for the Democrats, learning how to talk to average people who are hurting.
He won Wisconsin for the first time in decades for a Republican because he kept going there. And people were like, why is he going there in 2016? And then in 2020, we're like, we better go there. And then we won. It was close, but we won. Right. Same thing in Michigan. So I want to touch on, there were other topics, but I do want to touch on the WGA strike because I have so many friends who are in WGA and having an impact, and the actors are out too. It looks like it's getting closer, but I remember years ago when there was a strike, it's like 2007 or 8, it felt like we noticed it more for some reason. I don't know why. You know, late night was off the air and all that. Now it's like, I don't even get a sense that people notice that things aren't there. And maybe because there's so many streaming services and other places to fill your entertainment needs. And I think that hasn't been helpful for the writers in leverage. I see, Kevin, you're nodding your head. What do you think? Is that part of it?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that a lot of there's so much content, and I hate that word content as a comic, but there's so much content out there. You know, that's also why, like, I'm not worried about like climate change, because you can't make a TikTok video when the world's blowing up behind you. So I do think that'll get solved. There's so much content out there. And then on top of it, politics are bigger than ever. I mean, we didn't really give a shit about what Obama was doing while he was doing it. It was like, okay, you got bin Laden? Oh, that's great. But it's like, it wasn't this 24/7 news cycle of follow everyone around, which they do with, I think they do with Biden too. It's just they're following him falling. So it's like all of this like crazy stuff that's happening right now, and everything's a 24/7 news cycle. So instead of politics and news, you get opinion-based news, right? And so that's now a form of entertainment. And then you get all of these streaming services, and then on your phone you have YouTube and all this other stuff to digest. That it's like, really, the late night shows were shifting towards segments online and putting up these little clips on all these sites. So like, who was really watching it nowadays in the first place? So it's really hard, especially when you have summer blockbusters. What's going to matter is like the pandemic, when there was a gap in the movie industry and the show industry, where it was like there was nothing really new going on. When all of the cycle of what's been filmed and written starts to dry up and you notice that big gap, that's when I think the effects are really gonna hit the common people.
What do you think, Carole? I mean, with your work, and you know, you produce that one thing for Showtime. I don't know if you're going to produce other episodes, if it stops or what happens, but what's your sense on the strike and the fact that it really doesn't seem like, at least they're talking again and they're getting closer? You know, I was just talking to someone who's in the union who was saying, from what we were seeing publicly and what he was saying privately too, that it's getting closer. They're not there yet, but they feel better. Like we might have a resolution. I haven't felt any dire need to get it done this time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm SAG-AFTRA, so you know,
that's still happening, right?
Yeah, that's still happening. The problem is with what's interesting about the strike is when I was out in LA just before the strike happened. Whenever I go out there, one of my friends who's a writer invites everybody to his house for a barbecue. So this way I don't have to go driving all over LA to see everyone. And 99% of them were all, I knew we were going to strike before anyone else did, and they were talking about, it's so bad what they're doing, because in the old days, and Kevin, you're a baby, so you won't remember this stuff. But like, for example, the Tingle and Dyke show had 30 episodes a season. And what would happen is, let's say I was a writer on the show, I'd be in the writer's room. If it was my episode, I was on set, but all the other writers were on set. Okay. I have a good friend of mine who wrote for a Disney show. She wrote, she was in the writer's room for 12 episodes. She got paid for that. And then it turns out that one of the kids that my husband works with on Broadway, because he's a child guardian, was in the show. And he said, oh, ask her if she knows so-and-so. But she was never on the set. So she wrote the 12 episodes. And the only people on the set was the EPs, which were 2, and then the creator, and that's it. So, in the old days, like if I got a series in the 80s, I was like, all right, we're buying a house, we're getting Mercedes. Yeah. You can't make it's like being a fucking feature on the road now is what being a writer is being. Am I right? That's
Kevin's exactly like, yes, right.
Yes. What's a feature?
Yeah, exactly. But in the old days, and Jimmy knows this too, because we were on the road in the 80s. Yeah. You could make a living as a feature. You used to be able to make a living as an opening as an MC. So they're just trying to squeeze the creative people to like, nope, you can't do that. You can't do that. And with Screen Actors Guild, for example, everyone that's on this, they would scan us.
Yeah.
And my picture, they'll give me $500. And now if they want to put me in a scene like a Game of Thrones, they can.
As the dragon? No.
As a dragon. The great dragon, boys. I'd be a great fucking
Carole Montgomery, the dragon. The voice of the face of and introducing the face of the dragon. Yeah. No, I get you. Look, we're running out of time, but I get your point. Jimmy, do you want to touch on that? And also then tell people where they can follow you, because I want everyone to
I disagree with what Kevin and both of them were saying, that there's so much competition for people's attention, number one, but also it's not something we cannot fight because of what she was just saying. Carolyn was just saying, they're trying to exploit the talent for perpetuity. Do you remember the contracts we used to sign back in the 80s? You'd do a set for Caroline's on Broadway, whatever it was like 6 minutes, and it would literally say, we own this, we own the likeness, they do not have our best interests in mind, and the only way we get leverage is by sticking together. So
at the union, that's why union is important. So Jimmy, if people want to follow you, your shows, where can they go, my friend?
There's only one place to see young Jim Tingle, Dean.
Where is that?
That's jimmytingle.com. Let me tell you something about jimmytingle.com, Dean.
Tell me.
We have the Jimmy Tingle Show, the podcast there. We also have all of my upcoming dates, the next 3 dates. Ready? Tuesdays, Broadway Comedy Club.
In New York.
53rd Street, the biggest, best comedy club in the history of New York City. And I don't want to brag, but I'm in the basement. So I'll be in the basement of the Broadway Comedy Club on 53rd Street on Tuesdays, the 29th, the 5th, and the 12th of September.
Follow Jimmy there. And by the way, the basement is the big room at Broadway Comedy Club, so it's not the small room. So, Carole, where can people follow more about you and your shows?
CaroleMontgomery.com, funnywomenofaccertainage.com. In September, we're bringing the funny women to the Pence Center for the Arts in Coolidge, Arizona. We're doing the Bankhead Theater in Livermore, October 6th, and then I think October 18th through the 21st, we're doing a mini tour in Michigan. So there's plenty of dates. Come see us. It's a rotating cast, except for me, the dragon.
Wow. And my friend Kevin, what about you?
You can find everything related to me on all my social media at Kevin Dombrowski. There's a link in that bio. It's got all my my old podcasts. It's got my albums. I have a new album coming out soon. It's called Stay at Home Kevin. I just finished editing it. Waiting on the first draft of that. So that'll be out on Pinch Records soon. I'm on the road a lot. This week I'm in Yonkers Comedy Club. Next week, Lexington, Kentucky. Back on the road with Mencia once a month. It's been real fun to get to link back up with them and do that.
Tell callers I said hi.
I will. I'll tell them you said hi. And a bunch of other dates at the board. I will. I'll tell everyone. That everyone said hi.
I don't know him. He doesn't know me, but tell him I said hi.
He actually knows me.
We've got Laughing Stock Comedy Club, Borgata Comedy Club, Gotham Comedy, a bunch of other dates. So check out kevindombrowski.com. I'm on the road a lot, so come see me.
Check them all. Well, guys, you've been great. So thanks so much for being on. Jimmy, welcome to What Just Happened. And Kevin and Carole, thanks for coming back. I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to take a break, come back with more.